What does this mean for us tomorrow, Jared, in the Carolinas?
Yeah, and obviously we look to the west and we see this going on tonight, and we are not, this is certainly something that we don't want to see. We have, a very strong, nasty QLCS, quasi-linear convective signature. That call it a squall line. That's what we all are used to hearing. So we're going to call it a squall line. This guy is going to press eastward. Continue to press eastward, but again, the good news is that we should not be seeing it in full force here. So what I've got here is I've got the 18Z high res rapid refresh. We'll probably get a new run during the show. I don't think we'll be on for that to happen, but this is how it was modeled. Generally, about actually let's just move it up. Let's just move it up a notch and see how it was modeled there versus so. It's the model is a little bit slower in some spots of the line and right on target in others, but you can see that's a very intense line of storms that's been modeled. And as we pull this forward through time here, let's go to tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. I've got the other thing that I've got. You see these wind barbs up here. I've got the low level winds, the 10-meter winds, but I've also got the 850 millibar winds, because one thing that is going to cause a big problem is a very strong low-level jet. Think winds, 5,000 feet off the deck, 65, 70, 80 miles an hour racing off the deck here ahead of this and along this line. And so, so again, adjusting for timing, we'll see this line come through sometime early in the morning up in western North Carolina. The good news there is that it will be weakening as it gets over here. There's a very strong low right now tonight, a 991 millibar low around Chicago tonight. There's a very, very strong storm. But those dynamics are going to continue to lift to the north. And in the meantime, what we're going to have is this ongoing line of thunderstorms going on to the south. But as we lose some of that dynamic support, especially at the surface, that's going to cause parts of the line segment to begin to weaken. And you can see that the model at noon tomorrow starts to bring some showers across Columbia, some showers and thunderstorms from Columbia to Charlotte to Raleigh here, with the potential for some pockets of damaging wind. Again, when we have low-level jets like this, it's not going to take too terribly much to get much in the way of strong winds down to the surface. And even outside the thunderstorms, you can expect, in the Charleston metro, for example, gusts to 40 miles an hour certainly seem like a pretty good bet tomorrow, especially in the overpasses. Tonight, I mean, Scotty, we're going to get to this too. Tonight, we could be looking at 80 mile an hour gusts in the Great Smokies, and we're going to talk about that because there's a fire going on near Pigeon Forge right now, and so this is not the time to have this kind of wind, and so we're going to be seeing some really gusty winds across the Carolinas tomorrow. Now, you'll notice that eastern North Carolina is relatively untouched by showers as we're at noon here. Fast forward ahead to 4 o'clock, you start to see maybe a little bit of redevelopment here. We also could see maybe a little bit of redevelopment closer to Charleston as well. Again, what is probably going to end up happening is that thunderstorms ongoing around the Gulf Coast will once again kind of cut off that quality moisture source coming into parts of South Carolina. But when we get into North Carolina, they're going to have time to destabilize. And the other part too is that you're going to be a little bit closer to that low. So we could see parts of the line try to get back going there. So that's where that is where we are bringing in the risk areas again. So eastern North Carolina, much of South Carolina in that moderate risk. We do have that slight risk set up generally in like Raleigh, Greensboro, that area. And that goes up into Virginia, again, kind of closer to where that surface low is. And then to the south, from roughly Edisto Beach over to Allendale and Augusta, Georgia, southwest, there's a slight risk there as well, somewhat elevated severe weather risk. Again, damaging wind gusts, the primary concerns. Cannot rule out a tornado, especially where strong line segments can set up. So again, a lot to watch here as we get into tomorrow. Overall, messages, keep rain gear handy. Make sure you have good ways to receive watches and warnings. We do not anticipate the situation like we are seeing unfold right now, and we have seen unfold pretty much all day over over in the Mid-South and along the Louisiana and Mississippi Gulf Coast. It's been a very, very, unfortunately, as predicted by the Storm Prediction Center and the local weather service offices, it's been another very, very scary weather day for those folks in that neck of the woods.
Question from Mac and Cheese, who's watching on YouTube. Could we have a small isolated chance of a tornado in the foothills for tomorrow? And I actually have here, Jared, the Storm Prediction Center's analysis on the probability of seeing a tornado tomorrow, and across much of the Carolinas, essentially from the foothills to the east, we're looking at about 2% chance. I think that timing that timing is going to be our saving grace, but not enough that we can let our guard down. It's still a weather aware type of situation on Thursday.
Yeah, we're gonna have plenty of warm air pumping in ahead of it too, and
yes,
and that should allow for at least marginal destabilization, even nocturnal destabilization. I think we're going to be able to get enough there to get that to go. And the wind shear, I mean, if you were in their advanced spotter class last night, you know how important wind shear is.
That's right.
So, Scotty, go ahead.
I'll say this. This is all dependent also on timing. I will say the line is moving a little bit slower, than what was anticipated. So if it continues to move slower or speeds up, that also can do some wonders or some magic one way or the other with this. But I also say this, Jared, you were mentioning something I want to keep in the back of everyone's mind is this is not the actual front. The actual front doesn't move through till late day tomorrow. So do we get that morning round of showers and storms, and then does the sun pop out for 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon before the actual front moves through? If so, we could see a few isolated storms develop like we did last week. Which could, which happened. So I don't want to downplay it all the way. Keep in mind we have that morning wave, but we'll have to watch the afternoon because we could see a few more things develop as the actual front moves through the area. So tomorrow's just a weather aware day. No matter where you are in the Carolinas, from the mountains to the coast, you need to remain weather aware. All modes of severe weather are possible. The main line could move through early tomorrow morning for the western part, the central part. That could, kind of hamper things out tornado wise, but that damage and wind threat could still be there. As Jared was talking about, we have copious amounts of wind shear aloft. So that could definitely, any storms could tap into that and bring those gustier winds to the surface. So
Let me pause you right there for just a second, because we only have like 2 minutes before Shay has to jump in. You mentioned winds, and I wanted to let the wind expert just jump in real fast. Shay, the winds are already picking up here where I am in Charlotte. We've got a gusty situation, a high wind warning in the mountains. In the 2 minutes you have with us before you have to hop off tonight's show, what's your analysis on the wind threat?
Yeah, well, it's exactly what Jared said. I'm sharing screen. I don't know if you can see it or not. Yep, here we go. So, we have this convergent flow ahead of this front, and Scotty said the front doesn't pass till later. It's all the convergent flow ahead of it. And so low-level jetting is going to be occurring at a pretty high rate until you get to the coast, where insulation, I think, is going to build over South Carolina, especially north of Edisto. We've seen that happen frequently the last few rounds, where even the cooler like shelf waters will stave off some of the storms. But going out west to Tennessee, I mean, we're already seeing winds, gusting up into the 30s to the 40s. I know that there was some readings here that I was looking at a little bit ago. It's kind of jumpy because all these weather stations are over land. So you don't really get quality readings unless you get to maybe an airport. But some of our Tempest weather flow stations are getting some pretty high readings right now. We're getting into the 40s for some locations, definitely mid 40s, which that could translate up towards 50 miles per hour for these gusts. And these wildfires are just being driven now. As this heads upslope, these winds are going to be these storms are going to be climbing upslope. The winds are going to be increasing. So your low-level jet's going to be increasing because as you go higher up in elevation, the wind's already high there, and the gradient's going to be tighter at the surface. So that means you have adiabatic winds, not katabatic. Katabatic's on the other side of the slope, which will happen in Scotty's neck of the woods tomorrow. So the adiabatic winds that climb in the orographic lift are going to increase even higher than that. So that's what you're saying, up to 70, 80 miles an hour, and that's exactly why, because the gradient, that gradient has nowhere to go but upwards once it starts to head up slope. And once it gets downslope, then it sort of relaxes on the other side of the mountains, unless you have a really strong tail end of that front feeding it. And that's where I think we're going to see some of that weakening occurring as it crosses over the slopes and heads down. Now, whether or not it grabs more instability on its way has yet to be determined, but
I have the high wind warnings pulled up right now across the area for those who are watching us visually tonight. And you can see that in addition to that red flag fire warning, we do have that high wind warning up. So yeah, I mean, we're going to have the winds and the threats that come with the winds during weather, but combined with moving that smoke around, there's going to be an air quality concern as well.
Yep. I got one more thing I want to share, and I know you're wanting to we can hop off.
Yeah, 2-minute warning.
This is the latest HRR wind gusts total or forecast. So this is at midnight tonight. You can really see these winds along the foothills of the Great Smoky Mountains right there. I mean, that if you look down here at the legend down here, you're looking at 60, 70, 80 mile per hour wind gusts. But even for instance, here's Charlotte where my cursor's at. Here's Raleigh. Down here's Charleston. So look at these wind gusts tomorrow, y'all. We'll just play this out. This is going to be, let me go back a frame. Sorry. It's the latest run that this fully in. So here is 6 a.m. You can already see here's Charlotte gust 43 miles per hour, Raleigh, Greensboro, Winston-Salem 40 miles per hour, Columbia 38, Greenville, Spartanburg 34, even down into your area, Jared, down in Charleston, you can see 29, 35 mile per hour wind gusts. But look at this as we go throughout the day tomorrow. You're looking at 50 mile per hour wind gusts up into the triad. So this wind continues tomorrow night. Look at 2 a.m. We're still seeing 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts where that fire's at. So not good for that area. And even on your Friday morning at 10 a.m., 45 mile per hour wind gust in Boone. So it's going to be a pretty windy event after this front passes, even in the mountains. So hunker down.
A reminder that you can stay up to date with all the latest severe weather happenings by checking out the Carolina Weather Net, streaming for free on the Carolina Weather Group YouTube channel. Watch it on your phone, your TV, for real-time weather conditions throughout the day on Thursday or any day. It's built just for you, the Carolina weather fan. Well, that is Scotty Powell. That is Jared Smith. I am James Brierton. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Carolina Weather Group. And stay weather aware. We will see you back here again real soon.